Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The UN Security Council has voted on a resolution put forward by the UAE calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza.
There are also numerous accounts of sexual violence.
It comes 2 days after the UN chief Antonio Guterres invoked a rarely used power to bring to the Council any matter which may threaten the maintenance of international peace. The US has consistently opposed international calls for a ceasefire and is thought likely to vote against the resolution. But the US Secretary of State has urged Israel to do more to protect civilians, saying there is a gap between its promises and the reality on the ground.
It remains imperative that Israel put a premium on civilian protection. And there does remain a gap between exactly what I said when I was there, the intent to protect civilians, and the actual results that we're seeing on the ground. We continue to recognize the extraordinary difficulty of this task, as Israel is dealing with a terrorist adversary that intentionally embeds itself with civilians. But again, Israel has an obligation to do everything possible to put a premium on protecting civilians and maximizing humanitarian assistance.
With fighting raging around Khan Yunis and in the north of Gaza, pictures have emerged on social media showing dozens of Palestinian men detained by Israel. The footage shows them stripped to their underwear, kneeling on the ground and being guarded by Israeli soldiers. The men are thought to have been arrested in Beit Lahia in the far north of the Gaza Strip. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said he will stand again for a 5th term in office. He spoke about his intentions during an awards ceremony for participants in the war in Ukraine. It comes a day after officials set 15th to the 17th of March 2024 as dates for the presidential election. Mr. Putin's re-election is seen as inevitable, with opposition almost non-existent and Russian media completely under his control. The 71-year-old has already been in power in Russia longer than any ruler since Joseph Stalin. US President Joe Biden's son, Hunter, is facing a 9-count criminal indictment for alleged tax evasion. The 56-page charge sheet accuses him of evading $1.4 million in taxes between 2016 and 2019 and funding an extravagant lifestyle. Much of his alleged illicit activities occurred while his father was US Vice President under Barack Obama. The Yale-educated lawyer faces up to 17 years in prison if convicted. Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan has travelled to Manyara region of Tanzania and inspected the devastation caused by flash floods and landslides. The death toll from the December 3rd deluge has risen to 76 from 69, with more than 5,600 people homeless and 750 farm crops destroyed and many livestock killed. Canada has unveiled a plan aimed at pushing oil and gas companies to cut emissions by up to 38% from 2019 levels by 2030. At COP28 in Dubai, Canada's Federal Environment Minister, Stephen Gilbert, said Canadians expect their government and oil and gas companies to do their part on addressing climate change after a year of record wildfires and other natural disasters.
Yesterday, Canada made an historic announcement. For the first time ever in our history, we are putting in place regulations to ensure that the oil and gas sector will reduce its pollution. It's never been done before. We think that a sector that did $120 billion worth of profit last year should invest some of those profits into decarbonization, into creating good jobs for Canadians for many years to come. And Canadians expect their government, they expect the oil and gas sector to do their part when it comes to fighting climate change.
And the Australian Jay Hineker and the Italian Anastasia Bagaglini have won the men's and women's titles at the 2023 Street Style Global Championships. Hineker was the first Australian to take the title, holding off Dutchman Jesse Marlott in the final. In the women's competition, Bagaglini became the youngest ever winner and the first champion from Italy. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.